You know what? Fresh baked bread, sliced in the freezer, lasts about a month. Over that, it starts becoming stale. A good time to either make breadcrumbs or a baked charlotte. I'll show you how. The whiskey sour, first published in the Waukesha Plain Dealer in 1870. Go Wisconsin. You know, it's tough to find maraschino cherries that haven't been soaked in corn syrup. These, from Tillin Farms, they're grown in Oregon and made in a simple sugar syrup. They're delicious. Tillin Farms, maraschino cherries, made the way they used to be. Ship runs aground in Coos Bay, loaded with booze, bodies washing against the shore. What do? Start a bonfire and start drinking. This is a true story. Tonight we're going to make an apple charlotte. But first, we gotta make some breadcrumbs. Home-baked bread lasts about a month in the freezer. What do you do with the remnants? Make breadcrumbs. This whiskey sour is sour. Making breadcrumbs is easy. First, we gotta cube the bread. Ship runs aground in Coos Bay, loaded with booze, bodies washing against the shore. What do? Start a bonfire and start drinking. The year is 1915. The place, 20 miles south of Coos Bay, Oregon. Back in 1915, steamliners were the only way to move cargo from Seattle to San Francisco. And on the afternoon of November 2nd, 1915, the Santa Clara, a 233-foot steamer, was sailing from Portland to Coos Bay on its way to San Francisco. Sometimes I like to use old bread to make croutons. That's a great way of using old pieces of bread. The Santa Clara, a 233-foot steamer, was sailing from Portland to Coos Bay on its way to San Francisco. And typical for an Oregon November, the rain was just pouring down. The rain was pouring down and the seas were rough. And the heavy seas forced the ship aground. Captain August Lofsted was trying to steer the boat into Coos Bay, but the steering gear broke and he sailed the ship straight into the South Spit. Try to say that fast. Sailed straight into the South Spit. I gotta spit this one out. Oh my God! Captain Lofsted tried to pull back, but the ship hit a reef. Water started pouring into the Santa Clara's cargo bay, and a panic ensued. Captain Lofsted, under pressure, gave the order to abandon the ship. Lifeboats were deployed. The first lifeboat headed to shore, but hit a rock. The waves crashed upon it, and it overturned. The lifeboat somersaulted, wave after wave, men, women, children, all spilling out into the sea. They tried to swim through the cold, dark water to the shore. Some made it, others didn't. Captain Lofsted, he remained on board, his fate sealed with the ship. Sadly, the next morning, the tide was so low that Captain Lofsted could just jump off the boat and wade across to the shore to greet his passengers, now mourning for the loss of their loved ones. If Captain Lofsted had not given the order to abandon ship, all the people would have survived. Instead, 16 out of his 60 passengers died in the dark waters of the Coos Bay. Coos Bay, the nearest town, was a mud-soaked 18 miles from where they were. Captain Lofsted remained with the Santa Clara to protect the cargo, some of which belonged to the people of Coos Bay. Waves and the tide continued to batter the Santa Clara. Sooner or later, the ship's hull was going to break. The hull of the Santa Clara was made of wood, and if it broke, all the cargo inside would be gone with it. So townspeople, hearing the Santa Clara had run aground, immediately went to its location to see if there was anything they could salvage. So on the morning of the third day, the people of Coos Bay just waded through the water and climbed aboard the Santa Clara, overwhelming Captain Lofsted and their crew. Soon, the Santa Clara was filled with men grabbing crates, throwing them overboard to their waiting families who would gather them up and bring them on shore. They made little piles of booty on the shore with the women and children watching over them. And that's when someone found the whiskey. Deep in the bowels of Santa Clara were cases and cases of bonded liquor. And after that, there was no shutting the party down. And then I put these cubes of bread on a cookie sheet and let them toast up for about 10 or 15 minutes in a 350-degree oven. Deep in the bowels of Santa Clara were cases and cases of bonded liquor. And after that, there was no shutting the party down. The Coos Bay Times reported that the orgy lasted 2 days. Case after case of whiskey was removed from the Santa Clara and consumed on the beach. Giant bonfires were set. The beach was covered with swaying drunken men. The beach was covered with swaying drunken men. The beach was covered with drunks. The Coast Guard was called in, but they said, "We don't cover the beach." The sheriff was called, and he said, "My jurisdiction stops at high tide." Someone sent a plea to the U.S. Marshals in Portland, but they too claimed they had no jurisdiction. So the party continued. So drunk people were building bonfires, waiting for the tide to change so they could loot some more. They were still clearing bodies from the beach when the looters came in. By the fourth day, word got around and more of the townspeople came in to join the party. Families of the passengers of the Santa Clara had yet to claim their drowned relatives, while the looters were just sitting around bonfires, waiting for another day's looting. By the fourth day, the looting was getting pretty slim. So one of the looters set a charge of dynamite, hoping to blow a hole in the hull of the Santa Clara. But the dynamite didn't go off. So the drunken looters decided, well, if dynamite won't do it, why don't we just burn a hole into the side of the boat? But then the Santa Clara caught fire, and the whole ship was engulfed in flames. The ship burned for the next 2 days, and all the cargo inside it. For the next couple days, looters all over Coos Bay were seen selling their booty from the backs of wagons and automobiles, trading cans and cleaners and ketchup for all the dead bodies. Captain Lofsted lost his maritime license. And then you want to let cool for about 10 minutes. This is my favorite thing to do. I do like this. I do. Nothing like dropping croutons into a food processor and watching them grind. Smells so good. And then just dump them in a freezer bag until you're ready to use them. You know what? Fresh baked bread, sliced in the freezer, lasts about a month. Over that, it starts becoming stale. A good time to either make breadcrumbs or a baked charlotte. I'll show you how. Swiss apple charlotte puddings. It's from the Portland. This is from the Portland Women's Exchange Cookbook from 1913. Pudding. Swiss apple charlotte. Butter pudding dish and lined bottom with small slices of stale bread, buttered and cut rather thin. Okay, basically what a charlotte is a layered cake. A lot of times like a tiramisu would be considered a charlotte. Basically what you're doing is you're taking a stale cookie, biscuit, bread, any sort of thing that is stale, and cooking it or soaking it in a liquid until it's soft. All right, let's get started. I don't have a dedicated pudding tin, but a loaf tin works just fine. What we're going to do first is butter this tin. Mind the hands. And you want to be pretty liberal with this because you want to get it out when it's done. Set that aside. Then we've got just sliced bread that I pulled out of the freezer. Typically what I like to do is I like to cut the crust off of this bread. These cut bread ends, put them in a freezer bag. You can make breadcrumbs later. First step is we need to butter this bread. You don't have to leave the crust on. It's just a textural thing. Still tastes pretty good. Okay, I've got a layer of bread in here, and now the next step is to add a layer of jam. And this is a great use of, that jam that you might have in the back of the refrigerator that's collecting dust. We're just going to spread a layer of that on top. And again, you don't need to be gentle. You can just kind of several teaspoons on the top. This is a rhubarb jam. I think it'll go well with the apples. First, we got to peel more apples. These apples have been sitting in my fridge since they made apple pie. Now, we're going to do something with it. We're going to make this Charlotte. Henderson Luling. Okay, so first we got to peel these apples. More apples. More apples. Good apples. And then that apple layer gets covered in a little sugar. Some cinnamon. I'm going to put a little nutmeg in there as well. Well, if I can find a microplaner. Again, these are sort of classic apple pie flavors. On to the next layer of bread. They just don't make these, you don't see this type of dish anymore, and it's really good. I'm just filling some of the holes up with random pieces of bread. And then again, another layer of jam. This is a layer of pear and hazelnut butter. Followed by more apples. A little more sugar. Followed by more buttered bread. Followed by more jam. It's a great way to get rid of old jam. Another layer of sliced apples. A little more sugar and cinnamon. Again, very little, just a light dusting. I like to sprinkle a little salt. And then we're going to top this off with breadcrumbs. And these breadcrumbs are just bread that I've toasted a little bit and then ground in the food processor. Nothing like dropping croutons into a food processor and watching them grind. And then a couple little dollops of butter on top. And then a squeeze of lemon. All right, and this gets covered and put into a 350-degree oven for about 45 minutes. Covered in the oven for about 45 minutes at 350 degrees. Here we go. I pulled this out of the oven. It's been 45 minutes. I let it cool for about 10 minutes. And now for the big reveal. So it baked down quite a bit. We have to flip this out onto a serving plate, so. A dollop of buttercream, which is just powdered sugar and butter with a little vanilla. Look at those layers. Or finished apple charlotte. Let's have a taste. I was hoping it'd be a little higher, but I was also hoping I would be a little higher. It's really good. The caramelized bits of bread. It's kind of like a cross between a cinnamon roll and a apple fritter. It would be great if you put some nuts in it as well. But it is just like an apple fritter and a cinnamon roll kind of rolled into one. It's great because it gets rid of jams and really you could any sort of fruit pairing that you could think of that goes together would go well with this. I'm thinking, strawberries and pine nuts would be good. Blackberries would be great with this. You could do blackberries and apples. It'd be really nice. Add a little extra lemon in there. It's a good starting off point. And it's the nice thing about it is that it uses items that you have in your pantry. I mean, stale bread, fruit, apples. I mean, it's a winner. The Swiss apple charlotte. Another round. Thanks for watching. See you next time.